If you were to travel back in time to around this time last year, several weeks after the combine and just before the draft, you'd notice there was not a lot of hype surrounding the quarterbacks in the 2025 draft class. It makes sense given the quarterbacks drafted the year prior in 2024, but outside of Cam Ward, Jackson Dart, and Shedeur Sanders, there was not all that much buzz about the quarterbacks. In fact, only one quarterback was drafted in the top 15 in the 2025 NFL draft, whereas there were 6 quarterbacks drafted in the top 15 the year prior. But there was an intriguing quarterback prospect flying under the radar who was widely viewed to be a day 3 pick due to his age and injury history. Interestingly enough, he was taken before one of the 3 quarterbacks I mentioned before when the Saints were on the clock with the 8th pick in the 2nd round in the 2025 NFL Draft, where they selected Tyler Shough, quarterback out of Louisville. With Shedeur Sanders still on the board, the Saints pick was a shock to fans around the league. It probably wasn't as much of a shock to the front offices though, considering Sanders was not drafted until the 5th round by the Browns, who had already drafted quarterback Dillon Gabriel in the 3rd round. After watching every single passing snap of Shough's rookie season, I'm kinda surprised he wasn't taken in the 1st round. I'm not saying that Shough should have been a top 10 pick, but I do wonder if the Rams are kicking themselves just a little bit for trading out of the 1st round after the Giants traded up to draft Jackson Dart. To show you what I'm seeing with Shough, we're gonna go through a ton of game film. And yes, I mean a ton of game film, where I'll talk about what Shough does well and some areas of concern that I have with him. After we break down all that film, I'll talk about a few things I'm anxious to see from Shough's upcoming sophomore season and his overall development as a quarterback. But first, I'm going to give some context and numbers from his rookie season real quick, just so I can paint a picture for you to keep in mind while we go over his film. If you don't follow Saints football all that much, Shough was not the starter to begin the season. Spencer Rattler had the starting job in week 1, and Shough did not start until week 9. Rattler was benched in the second half of week 8 against the Buccaneers after a concerning offensive performance, and Shough was the starting quarterback from then on out. Shough played 11 games and started 9 of them. Wins aren't a quarterback stat, but I do want to go over his record really quick. His record overall was 5-6, but when he was starting, his record was 5-4, so the Saints were playing above 500 ball when Shough was starting. In Shough's rookie season, he had 327 passing attempts with 221 completions, which gives him a completion percentage of 67.6%. One thing I want to note is his adjusted completion percentage, which was 76.5%. If you don't know what adjusted completion percentage is, all you need to know is that it accounts for drop passes by the intended receiver, quarterback spikes, and similar situations. He threw for just under 2,400 yards with 10 touchdowns and 6 interceptions. He also had an average depth of target at nearly 8.5 yards, which was the 10th highest in the league. In terms of pressure, 25% of pressures that Shough faced turned into sacks, which was the 2nd highest in the league. That stat alone shows that Shough did not have all that much help up front, which is something I'll talk a little bit more about later. For the most part, the Saints had a balanced offense where they utilized the run game a fair amount in the first 3 quarters of the game, but in the 4th quarter, they were extremely pass heavy. This was typically because at that point in the game, the Saints were playing from behind. Taking a look at how often and when Shough was throwing the ball, of the 327 passing attempts throughout the season, he had 58 attempts in the 1st quarter, 86 attempts in the 2nd quarter, 54 attempts in the 3rd quarter, and 129 passing attempts in the 4th quarter. So about 40% of Shough's passing attempts came in the 4th quarter, with half of those coming within the last 5 minutes of the 4th quarter. If the Saints were more pass-heavy throughout the entire game, it's a near certainty that Shough's stats would be completely different. Whether his stats would have been better or worse is pure speculation, but with the stats he has right now, he didn't have a bad rookie season by any means. However, numbers and stats only tell us a part of the story, and I know we're here for more than just numbers, so let's go ahead and take a look at all that game film and talk about Shough, starting with what I think he does well. And of the many things that Shough does well, I want to first start off by going over how he throws with anticipation. Throwing with anticipation is an essential skill for quarterbacks if they want to succeed in the NFL. By throwing with anticipation, you're able to get the ball to your guy right as they create separation when they break on their route. In this first clip from Week 10 against the Panthers, Shough is able to connect with 84 on the curl route to get the first down, largely because he threw with anticipation here. If we take a look at the play art real quick, the Panthers are in some sort of cover 6, and 84's curl route puts him right in the hole of the coverage. But that window won't last long. It's crucial that Shough gets this ball out quickly before the defense closes in on the receiver. If we take a look at when Shough starts winding up his throw, we can see 84's back is still facing Shough, right as 84 is about to break on his route. By the time the ball is well out of Shough's release, the receiver is still working on getting fully turned around so he can make the catch. If Shough waits until 84 is fully turned around, it's possible the deep safety comes back to close in just in time to make a play, or this defender moves to the right and possibly gets himself in a position to break up the pass. It's a simple play, but because Shough threw with anticipation, they were able to move the chains. Fast forwarding a few weeks to week 14 against the Buccaneers, the Saints are facing a 3rd and short late in the 4th quarter. Shough is able to help get the first down by throwing with a ton of anticipation here. To show you why this play worked, if you look at the bottom of your screen, the defenders are showing man coverage here. This is an advantage for the Saints, as Villay is running a corner route and Olave is running a go route. The idea behind this route combination is that Olave's go route will take any defenders downfield with him, and it will force any deep safeties to track him. This creates space for Villay's corner route. If Villay is able to create separation when he breaks on his route, Shough has to throw with anticipation so he can hit him while he's open. Shough sees his receiver get a few steps on the defender, so he lets the ball fly just as the receiver is starting to break on his route, and the ball is well on its way before the receiver even turns his head. It was a well-timed throw that helped convert a 3rd down late in the game. If Shough doesn't throw with anticipation here, I don't think he gets the throw off because of the pass rusher right in his face. If he did wait a little longer and somehow got the throw off, the defender on Villay likely closes that gap and breaks up the pass, which would force the Saints to bring out the punt unit late in the game. In this last clip, it's week 18 against the Falcons. Shough's target is the receiver running the deep out route, and the Falcons are playing some variation of cover 3, with the defender on Shough's target giving him a huge cushion. This means there will be no defenders underneath on the boundary, so throwing with anticipation here takes advantage of both the cushion provided by the corner and the weakness of the coverage the defense is in. Post-snap, Shough sees that huge cushion the corner is giving the receiver, and he winds up his throw right as the receiver is about to break on this out route, and he gets the throw off while the receiver is still breaking and just before the receiver turns his head. By the time the receiver looks back at Shough, the ball is about a 1/3 of the way there. It's a nice pass, and it turns a 2nd and long into a 3rd and manageable. The bottom line is that Shough's ability to throw with anticipation allows him to get the ball into those temporary open windows that come from the receiver creating separation when breaking on his route. An important reason he's able to throw with such anticipation is because more often than not, he's making the right read to find an open guy. When I was going through all of Shough's film and taking notes, I was consistently writing down that Shough would go through all of his reads. He does have the occasional forced pass, but Shough is usually playing smart football. In this first clip from week 12 against the Falcons, Shough does a nice job here on the play action by getting his eyes downfield and quickly assessing the defense post-snap. When he gets to the end of his drop back, he sees the middle of the field is closed, and the deep strong side safety could potentially undercut or disrupt any throws to the receiver running the post route, so he knows that guy isn't open. As for the receiver running what I'm going to call a deep curl, Shough sees the DB coming up from underneath and knows his guy isn't open there either. Since neither of his first reads are open, he goes to his check down, sees it's open, and takes what the defense is giving him to get a first down. Next, it's week 13 on the road against the Dolphins, and Shough shows some impressive processing speed on this play. This is a quick play that has Shough throwing immediately at the end of his one-step drop. He's able to quickly recognize Olave is open in the hitch route because 29 on the defense is in man coverage with Taysom Hill, who is running a route away from where Olave is. The corner is also dropping back, and the linebacker is covering just this middle part of the field. This defensive coverage leaves Olave wide open. While the defense got on Olave quickly, and he wasn't able to get many yards after the catch, Shough's ability to recognize what the defense was doing post-snap allowed the Saints to pick up a few yards on first down. Here, it's 2nd and long with 1:54 remaining in the second quarter, so the offense needs to make something happen quickly. The Buccaneers know this, so they're going to defend the sticks and have their defense drop back into a cover 3, which eliminates Shough's ability to throw it to the deep out, post, and dig routes. But this means the tight end coming off the chip block will be wide open underneath. As Shough is dropping back and surveying the field, he recognizes he doesn't have anyone open deep. So, he gets the ball to the check down and lets him make a play, which turns a 2nd and long inside 2 minutes into a 3rd and manageable. I know 2 of the plays I showed featured Shough throwing to the check down, which is boring football, but I wanted to highlight those 2 plays because taking the check down is usually smart football. Plus, as a rookie, it's important for Shough to build these habits of going through his reads, so he's not forcing passes downfield out of desperation or stupidity that results in turning the ball over. Another piece of Shough's game that impresses me is his ability to sense pressure and move around in the pocket. In our first example, it's 3rd and medium right after the 2-minute warning in the 4th quarter. The Dolphins blitz with 5, and at the end of his drop, Shough can sense the pressure coming from his right. So he steps up into the pocket where there is some space and rips it to Olave to convert the 3rd down late in the game. Aside from his movement in the pocket there, the other piece of this play that I love from Shough is that he doesn't panic, he still has his eyes down the field, and he's going through his reads, finds an open guy, and gets the ball to him for a huge first down. The next play I want to show comes from Week 17 against the Titans. The Titans try to run a corner blitz here on the play action, and it almost works. The running back makes an effort to block the incoming corner, but he doesn't stop him. Shough sees the incoming pass rusher, and he's able to step up to avoid getting hit, and he makes the throw to his receiver in the flat. The end zone view highlights what I really want to show in this play, which is how Shough protects the football. As he's avoiding the pass rusher and stepping up in the pocket, he twists his torso as he's bringing the football to his left side so he can protect it from the defender as quickly as possible. If he doesn't do that and just tries to step up in the pocket instead, that defender is probably getting a strip sack here because if you look closely, he does get a small piece of Shough's jersey. These are some really nice moves on Shough's part to avoid the sack and to get the ball to his guy. This last one comes from earlier in the same game against the Titans. It's another corner blitz featuring the same corner, but this time instead of rushing from the edge, he's flying through the B gap right in Shough's face. This doesn't seem to faze Shough though, since he's able to dodge the pass rusher, step up, and he floats it to his receiver. However, Shough does something incredibly subtle here. Right as the defender is about to get in his face, he pump fakes, which causes the pass rusher to jump in an attempt to block a pass that actually isn't coming, which allows Shough to scoot around him and make that throw. This pump fake isn't a one-off though. Shough often manipulates defenders to either buy himself some time in the pocket, force pass rushers to try and deflect a pass that actually isn't going to be thrown right at them, or create a window for one of his guys downfield. In this first one, I have to admit that I'm not sure whether Shough is intentionally baiting the pass rusher with the pump fake, or if this was a great adjustment by him on the fly, but I'm going to talk about it anyway. This is a quick throw to Olave running a slant, but before he makes the throw, Shough pump fakes. The pass rusher throws his hands up, and then Shough is able to throw it behind the defender and gets the ball to Olave to get the first down. If we take a look at the play from the end zone view, we see Shough does the pump fake, but he adjusts the direction his hips and feet are facing just slightly more inside, so he's able to make sure he's getting the ball past the defender and the guard. Like I said, I'm not sure if the pump fake was intentional, or if it was an adjustment just in case he didn't see the defender. But regardless, this was a nice play from Shough. In this next clip, we're going back to Week 17 against the Titans. In this play, Shough does a pump fake to Olave in the flat, which the slot corner totally falls for, as he closes in on Olave in the flat, but he doesn't realize Shough still has the ball until it's too late. 81 is wide open on what I'm going to call a fade route, because the corner here on 11 drops back to cover him, and this linebacker is only responsible for this middle portion of the field. This leaves the receiver wide open, and Shough is able to get it to him for a huge gain. In this next play, Shough is able to connect with Olave on a double move for a huge gain. The defense is in something like cover 4, with the corners playing not as deep as the safeties are. You would think a double move would probably be covered by this, but Shough does a great job getting the corner out of position. Just as Olave cuts outside on the first part of the double move, Shough does this little pump fake. This causes the corner to think that Olave is running some sort of out route, so he closes in on where he thinks Olave will be going. As the corner bites, Olave cuts upfield, and Shough is able to hit him in stride to get the Saints inside the Titans' 10. This is only half of what Shough does well, though. The majority of the positive stuff I'm going to talk about from here on out has to do with his mobility and how he isn't afraid to use his legs to pick up some yards. The first clip I want to show comes from Week 13 against the Dolphins. There's not much to talk about in this one, since Shough just looks to his right, doesn't like what he sees, avoids the pass rusher, and takes advantage of the space the Dolphins left him. The reason I'm showing this play is because I think it does a good job of demonstrating that Shough can pick up yards quickly if he sees the opportunity to do so. Like on this play, where he turns a 1st and 10 into a 2nd and 2. This next one comes from Week 16 against the Jets. It's a similar situation where the O-line is collapsing as Shough is surveying the field. He does a nice job avoiding the pass rushers in the pocket and getting into open space. But I want to go to the sideline view real quick to show why he decided to run. At the end of Shough's 5-step drop, 83 looks like he's open on the deep post. However, with where Shough would need to put the ball, the deep safety would be given an opportunity to break up the pass, and it also runs the risk of a potential hospital pass. Instead of forcing the pass on first down, like how you and I usually do in Madden, Shough plays smart football and takes advantage of the space left by the Jets' defense. In this last clip I want to show you from against the Titans, the Saints run a play action, but T'Vondre Sweat gives Shough very little time to go through his reads before he has to take off. It's a nice scramble that turns a 2nd and 10 into a 3rd and short, but what I want to point out on this play is that while he's running, he's keeping his eyes downfield and he's ready to make a throw if there is one. He even does a little pump fake to keep the defense on their toes and to buy himself a little time and space. You can see this a tiny bit with the defender moving parallel to the check down in case Shough throws the ball instead of keeping it. Now that I've shown you Shough isn't afraid to use his legs, I want to go over some film that shows one of my favorite things about him, which is how he uses his legs to extend the play and make some big throws. I'm starting off this section with one of my favorite plays from Shough. It's 3rd and 12, and he gets to the end of his drop back, and he sees a receiver open. But like usual, a defender is about to swallow him whole. Somehow, Shough is able to stay alive in the pocket. At the same time, 83 makes a big brain move and finds his way into open space. Shough is able to find him downfield and lets it rip. The end zone view of this play is absolutely insane. He steps up in the pocket just in time so the defender can barely get a hand on him. He finds open space, he scoots between the extended arms of 2 defenders, all while keeping his eyes downfield so he can find whoever is open. Unless you're a fan of an NFC South team that is not the Saints, I don't know how you can watch this without getting at least a little bit excited. It's a clutch play that's quite impressive, and it's a lot of fun to watch. The next play I want to show comes from Week 12 against the Falcons. I want to point out that the Saints are facing 4th and 15 with 3:34 left in the 4th quarter, and they are down. So they need to make something happen here if they want to stay in the game. The Falcons bring 4, but the edge rusher moves right past the tackle, and he's on Shough. Shough takes off, but he keeps his cool. He keeps his eyes downfield to see who is open, finds his guy, and lets it rip while he's on the run to hit him in stride and make this look so easy. Even though the Saints don't get the first down, Shough still makes a great play. Fast forwarding to Week 18, Shough has another nice throw on the run. The Falcons rush with 5, and as soon as he gets to the end of his dropback, the O-line is already collapsing and Shough is on the run. Just like the last play, he keeps his eyes downfield, and he sees 11 sneaking past the corner, so he sends it for a huge gain. This is a really nice read by Shough, as he sees the corners slow up, and he makes the throw right as the defender is caught flat-footed to take advantage of the blown coverage. If I had to guess what 24 was thinking, I think he thought he had help from the deep safety, as the Falcons were in cover 2. That meant that he could play underneath to contain any attempted scramble, but that wasn't the case, and they paid for it. To bring this all together, I'm going to go over some film where Shough does some improvising and communicating with his receivers downfield when the play breaks down. In this first play, it's a simple play action. Shough thinks he sees something when he reaches the end of his 7-step drop and starts to wind up his pass, but he feels pressure on his left and he doesn't follow through with the windup. He starts scrambling to his right and no one's open, but he points to his tight end and Shough is able to complete the pass for a gain. Looking at this again from the end zone view, what I love is that as Shough is scrambling to his right here, he sees number 69 on the defense closing in from his right, so he directs his tight end to run from his left by pointing and motioning towards the middle of the field away from the defender. By doing this, he creates some extra space to get the ball to his guy for a decent gain on a broken play. Later in the same game, we see Shough with some work conducting on the fly. Shough isn't under any direct pressure, but a pass rusher falls through the O-line and the pocket is quickly becoming a mess. So Shough rolls out to his right, doesn't see anyone open downfield, but he motions to one of his guys and gets him the ball. This was a really good heads-up play by Shough because he noticed everyone moving towards the sideline, so he communicates to the receiver to tell him to run in the opposite direction to get into open space. As soon as the receiver knew what was up, Shough let it rip for a huge gain downfield. This was fairly close to being broken up, and I think Shough probably got away with one, but still. It's an incredible play, and it's what you need if you want to win in the NFL. What I've found from watching all of his game film is that Shough has this ability to pull the most insane shit out of his ass. I know he's an older rookie that's 26 years old, but there are a lot of times where Shough doesn't look like a rookie out there. The skill gap between college and NFL defenses is astronomical, and it's very hard for rookies to adjust to the skill gap. But Shough is pulling off unbelievable plays that make me think of Patrick Mahomes just a little bit, and it's a lot of fun to watch. He's playing at a level where it wouldn't surprise me if he was consistently making mind-blowing plays that have us screaming at our TVs in a few seasons like, "You can't keep getting away with it!" I don't think even the most optimistic Saints fans out there had this sort of performance in their expectations for Shough this season. Before I move on to some of my concerns with Shough, I want to talk about one other thing he does well, which is learning from his mistakes and improving his quarterback play. The first of these is how he adjusted throwing the ball on screen plays and throws to the flat after he had a pass deflected at the line of scrimmage. In this clip from Week 12, we see Shough trying to get the ball to one of his receivers that's running an out route in the flat. The Falcons send 5 pass rushers with the corner blitz, and the corner does a great job of getting some air to block that pass. This was a play designed to be a quick throw as he winds up the pass right away at the end of his one-step drop, and the slot receiver is running an out route, whereas the outside receiver is running a slant. Shough had the right target for this play, but he doesn't even try to get the ball around the defender in this throw. He thought that he could get away with throwing it high above the defender, but he nearly paid for it with an interception. Comparing this to another play in the second quarter later in the game, Shough goes through his reads and doesn't see anything all that open. He sees the O-line collapsing and decides to go to his check down and gets the ball out there. Instead of standing still and getting the pass off like in the previous play, he moves away from the defenders a bit to give himself some space. At the same time, he's leaning away from the defenders and throws with his arm at a bit of an angle. It's not quite a sidearm throw, but it's not over the top like the one we just saw before. And just for fun, let's compare these two plays real quick. Here are the two throws side by side, with the deflected pass on the left and the completion on the right. There's a significant difference in the throws between how he's moving and throwing with a bit of an angle in the clip on the right, versus standing like a statue and just letting it rip in the deflection on the left. He has a few more plays like this, which I'll just play in the background, but this is a pretty significant in-game adjustment. Between these two plays, he didn't have another pass deflected, so my guess is someone on the coaching staff went through the film with Shough real quick on the sideline and told him what adjustments he should make. And what really stands out for me is that he started throwing like this in these situations from then on out for the rest of the season. He made a mistake, learned from it, and is playing better football because of it. Another area he started showing similar improvements in is standing tall in the pocket and making a throw instead of running. And the first example of Shough being a little too skittish in the pocket comes from Week 10 on the road against Carolina. The Saints are inside Carolina's 5-yard line, and they could potentially get a touchdown here. This play is designed to be a fairly quick throw, as Shough is in the gun and has a one-step drop back. The thing is, he misses a guy in the end zone here because he sees the pass rusher about to break through. So Shough takes off running while looking for someone else. I don't blame Shough for being a little skittish, since his O-line does fall apart fairly quickly, but if he hangs in the pocket for just a moment more and he makes a throw, that's probably a touchdown. But if we fast forward to this play in Week 14, it's third down in the fourth quarter against the Buccaneers. In this one, he's looking downfield for someone, and a pass rusher is coming up in his face real quick. A few weeks prior, Shough would have taken off as soon as he saw the pass rusher break through, but instead, he has a clutch moment where he stands tall and chucks it downfield to his receiver for a big gain and a huge first down. For my last example here, I wanted to show Shough's very last throw of the season. Here, the defensive edge is coming up on Shough fast, but Shough doesn't care. He's looking downfield, he sees his guy, and he likes the throw, and he lets it fly just as he's hit. The throw was a bit wobbly, but it was placed exactly where it needed to be. If this were Week 10, he's probably taking off through the B gap here, but this time he stood tall, got the throw off, and got the touchdown. And with that, I've gone through everything I like about Shough, so let's talk about some of the concerns I have with him. For this section, I will only be using plays from the last few weeks of the season, just so we can see what was going on as he was closing out the season. Now, the first concern I want to talk about is Shough staring down his receivers. This is a disaster waiting to happen, because smart defenders who watch Shough will be able to know exactly where he's going to go with the throw, and they'll be able to make a play to intercept the ball. The first example of this comes from Week 15 against the Panthers. In this play, Shough starts off by looking at the middle of the field, but by the second or third step in his drop back, He's looking exclusively at the left side of the field. If there were more than one receiver on that side of the field, then this wouldn't be as big of a problem. Since there's only one receiver on that side, defenders will know exactly who the ball is going to. The reason Shough staring down his receiver wasn't as big of an issue on this play is because Olave is going to cut outside, and the defender's hips are pointing towards the inside of the field, so the defender is in no position to stay with Olave when he breaks on his route. Things worked out because Shough threw with anticipation, and the defender was out of position, but this is not a good habit to get into. Our next instance of this comes from Week 17 against the Titans. This one isn't as bad since there were 3 guys lined up on the left side of the field at the snap, but by the second step of his dropback, Shough is looking towards that back pylon, and he doesn't look anywhere else. He doesn't look off any defenders or anything like that, so it's fairly clear where he's going to go when he starts winding up this pass. I will say this is a clean throw, and Shough does a great job of getting the ball right where his receiver would be, but this habit will lead to turnovers. I know that these first 2 clips didn't have poor outcomes, but let me show you a play that was nearly catastrophic. This one comes from Week 18, and it's another quick throw, as Shough has a 1-step drop back, and he's throwing to one of the 2 slants here on the left. As soon as Shough gets the ball, he's looking at the left side of the field, which is what he's supposed to do on this play, but he's staring down the outside receiver and his route. The slot corner is watching Shough, and he sees him staring down his receiver as he's winding up his pass. The corner is able to undercut the throw and intercept it. He damn near runs it back for a pick 6 before he's forced out of bounds at the Saints' 25-yard line late in the game. While Shough was going to the right receiver, he was staring him down, which the defender was able to read like a book, and the Saints paid for it dearly. Another concern I have with Shough that I want to talk about is the accuracy of some of his throws. He makes the right reads and has the right timing on his throws, but he does sometimes have issues making an accurate throw. In this first example from Week 16 against the Jets, the end zone view gives us a clear view of what I'm talking about. Shough goes through his reads and finds the check down open, but this throw is low and away. There are times when you need to make a throw like that in order to make sure your guy's the only one able to catch it, but this is a throw that Shough should have been able to put square in his chest. While it was a completion, the receiver is on the ground and can't run downfield. The receiver did have some space around him, so he might have been able to pick up some extra yards after the catch, but that wasn't possible here because he had to hit the deck to make the catch. The next example I want to show is later in the same game. I've had to watch this one several times to try and figure out who Shough is throwing to, but I'm still not 100% sure. I think he's trying to throw to the receiver running the corner route since he's open, and this is a pass you can get away with underthrowing a little bit. That's because the corner underneath the intended receiver is staying on the receiver running the dig route, and the defender covering the receiver running the corner route is downfield, so you can get that ball underneath. Alternatively, you could say he's trying to hit the receiver running the dig route since the ball appears to fly right over his head. Regardless of which receiver Shough was trying to throw to, this was a wildly inaccurate throw. This last clip comes from Week 18, and it's a bit similar to the one we just watched. Shough tries to hit the guy running the deep post, but the ball lands behind him. That receiver does appear to be the most open, so it makes sense why Shough would try to get the ball to him, but this pass needs to be in front of the receiver, and even then, it's a bit of a risky throw. The most generous interpretation I have for this not being a case of poor accuracy is that he was either expecting the receiver to abruptly stop his route, or that the receiver would adjust to the throw being behind him. Like I said, it's an incredibly generous interpretation of what happened. But that takes us to the next concern I want to talk about, which is how Shough communicates on alert and option routes. If you're unfamiliar with alert routes, they're routes that are designed to take advantage of certain defensive coverages. The specific one I'm going to talk about here is one-on-one matchups on the outside where the receiver runs a go route. For example, Olave is in a one-on-one matchup outside the numbers. For this play, if the deep safety drops back to cover this half of the field, then the corner has help deep, and Olave won't be open, so Shough won't make that throw. If the deep safety doesn't drop back, and the corner does not have that deep help, Olave might be open, and Shough can make the throw. The Saints put a little twist on this concept, as Olave is running an option route, where he'll either run the go route downfield, or he'll break on the go route and come back underneath on a comeback route or a curl. Post-snap, Shough is watching the deep safety and sees that he's covering the middle of the field. The corner doesn't have help deep with Olave, so Shough lets it fly. Except Olave breaks and comes back underneath while the defender is running downfield and he's able to catch the ball for an interception. The next one comes from Week 17 against the Titans. Again, Shough sees the one-on-one matchup outside, thinks his guy might have a step on the defender, and lets it fly. The issue is the receiver breaks and comes back underneath, expecting the throw to be coming right at him, not downfield. The tricky thing with these plays is that blame could be placed on either Shough or the receiver. We're not in the locker room and we don't have the playbook to reference, so in either of these situations, we're not exactly sure who was in the wrong. The reason I'm bringing this up is because this happened multiple times with different receivers. So it isn't a case where Shough and one particular receiver are having a communication issue. It's possibly a miscommunication between Shough and the entire receiving room. The other tricky thing about analyzing these specific plays to determine if there's an overall pattern or not is that we don't exactly know the success or failure rate of this type of play. That's because a deep throw down the sideline from Shough to a receiver running a go route in a similar situation could have been an option play, but there's not really a way to know for sure. Regardless of where the blame lies, this is something to be addressed. And funny enough, the last concern I have with Shough that I want to talk about is how he occasionally misses open receivers downfield. In this first example, on 3rd down against the Jets, right outside their red zone, he completes a pass to his receiver running what I'm going to call a slant and hits him in stride. But the defender closes in on the receiver rather quickly and stops him just short of the first down marker. Rewinding the play, if you watch Olave on the outside running a deep post, he gets a step on both defenders and is open in the end zone. Don't get me wrong, this would have been an extremely tight throw and would need to be placed in an area where only Olave could make that play, but it's 3rd down, you're just outside the opponent's 20, why not try taking a shot like that? Anytime you're throwing underneath the sticks on 3rd down, you run the risk of not converting the first and being forced to bring the special teams unit out. This next one comes later in the same game. Shough again opts for a check down, which is fine in this case, since it's 1st down at the 2-minute warning in the 2nd quarter. You don't need to hit the end zone right there, but I think he could have hit his tight end running the go route for a touchdown. Additionally, if Shough held the ball and let the play develop for just a moment more, he might have been able to get the ball to Hill. That's because the deep safety comes down to cover Olave on the dig route. This creates a ton of space for Hill on his left, and Shough could probably get that ball into the open space. But he never had a chance to see that develop because of when he threw. It is what it is though, since sometimes you gotta take what the defense gives you. The good thing with all of the concerns I have is that they can be fixed. And I know I'm being a bit picky with some of these considering that Shough is a rookie, but if he's going to take the next step and lead the Saints on a playoff run or even win a Super Bowl down the road, he's going to have to start making these types of throws into those tight windows, and he's going to have to clean up a few things. With my concerns about Shough out of the way, I want to go over a few questions I have for this upcoming season that I can't wait to see answered. I don't have too much more film to dive into, but I think these questions are still worthy of discussion based on all the film we reviewed today. And the first of these questions I have is, can Shough operate a more complicated offense? In Shough's rookie campaign, he was operating a pretty simple NFL offense, which is totally fine. The skill gap between college and NFL defenses is absolutely insane. So you want to make sure your young quarterback doesn't have to do anything too complicated, so you can ease them into running an NFL offense. That being said, I have one last piece of film that I want to go over to show you what I mean. This play comes from Week 16. It starts out with Olave motioning from the outside to right behind the other receiver. This motion helps Shough in a couple of ways. The first is that it helps identify what type of coverage the defense might be in on the play. The corner follows Olave in motion, and he lines up inside relative to the receiver who is not in motion and the defender on that receiver. This reaction to Olave in motion strongly suggests that the Jets are playing some sort of man coverage here, which will help Shough diagnose the defense post-snap. The second way the motion helps is by influencing the coverage assignments for defenders. The corner on Olave was not the only defender who reacted to the motion. The deep safety moved in towards the hash marks, and the other safety drops back a little bit. Now, if we take a look at the Jets post-snap, the Jets are in cover 1, looks like cover 1 robbers specifically, with the safety dropping down to cover the middle of the field. The other safety is watching the deep middle of the field, and everyone else is playing man. Now, the tricky and fully speculative part here on my end is trying to determine if the Jets were originally planning to play cover 1 robber, or if they were going to be in a different coverage before Olave motioned. Going back to how everything looked pre-snap before Olave went in motion, it's possible the Jets were going to play some sort of cover 2 man. They have the 2 high safety shell pre-snap, which indicates cover 2, as each safety would cover their half of the field. These 2 receivers are running routes that are going to have them cutting outside towards the boundary. This means that if the Jets are in cover 2, there will be 3 defenders on the left side of the field covering 2 receivers. However, by motioning and having Olave no longer be the most outside receiver, the Jets make an adjustment to ensure that another defender will be covering the middle of the field, since it's easier for the Saints to attack the middle of the field because of the new offensive alignment with the motion. Because of the defensive adjustment to the motion, this means that there are now 2 defenders on the left side of the field, which is much better from a numbers perspective. That also makes the routes that beat man coverage so much more effective. Olave starts off running inside like he's running a slant or an in route, which makes the defender believe Olave is going to be going inside. So he closes in on where he thinks Olave is going to be going, but Olave slams on the brakes and is able to quickly get outside away from the defender, leaving him wide open. This leads us to another piece of this play that makes it a fairly simple one for Shough, which is the timing of the play. As Olave gets open, 81 begins breaking on his route. If Shough were throwing to 81 on the out route, the way he throws with anticipation here suggests that he would be throwing the ball at this moment as well, or very close to it. On top of this, both routes are in Shough's vision, which makes it a fairly simple read for him. To run through all of this again, this play is great for inexperienced quarterbacks because the pre-snap motion helped identify the type of coverage the defense is likely in. It forced the defense to adjust, which helped create space exactly where Shough was going to be looking at on his first read, and the routes were designed to beat man coverage. This is exactly the type of play you want to draw up for a rookie quarterback because it makes the quarterback's job a lot easier to do. Shough can clearly operate the offense with plays that feature simple reads, but I'm curious to see how he handles operating an offense that features plays with much more complex reads. The next question I have is, how will defensive coordinators go after Shough? Shough's biggest advantage in his rookie season is that there wasn't much film on him. Now, the league has 11 games of film they can watch to pick up on Shough's tendencies and use them against him. I don't have any specific film to go over here, but my point is that if I'm able to pick up these tendencies from Shough, what are defensive coordinators around the league noticing? It's not uncommon for young quarterbacks to have a sophomore slump, and that's normally because opposing teams have a bunch of film they can now watch. I don't know how exactly DCs are going to go after Shough, but I imagine they'll take advantage of both the relatively simple offense Shough is running and his tendencies. If Shough is constantly making one-side reads and he still is staring down his receivers, I would expect to see defenses disrupt Shough's game quite a bit. The next question I have is, will the Saints build around Shough properly? The biggest issue with the Saints offense is their O-line. Something interesting I noticed is that while the O-line can provide Shough with a clean pocket, when they fall apart very quickly. The Saints need to get Shough some protection up front. I want to mention that their starting center, Eric McCoy, is pretty good, but he had a season-ending injury in Week 7 and went on IR. The only time he and Shough were on the same field was for a single drive back in Week 3 against the Seahawks. If he comes back healthy, he'll be able to provide some much-needed protection for Shough. Additionally, rookie left tackle Kelvin Banks Jr. had a pretty good rookie season, so his development will be something to keep an eye on as well. That isn't enough though. So the Saints signed veteran offensive lineman David Edwards, who helped the Rams win Super Bowl 56 against the Bengals. Aside from the O-line, the Saints also need to get some more playmakers on their offense. Their most notable free agency signing to address this need is running back Travis Etienne. He'll be able to bring some much-needed explosiveness to the backfield. Saints coach Kellen Moore hasn't confirmed if Etienne will be taking the starting role from Alvin Kamara or not, but this is a huge addition for the Saints. As of early April when I'm recording this, the Saints have a little over $13 million in cap space for this season, so they've likely made all the free agency moves they're going to make. As for their draft picks for the upcoming draft, the Saints have a first, second, third, 2 fourths, 2 fifths, and a 6th round pick. It's worth noting their first round pick is the 8th overall pick, so they could get a blue chip prospect to give the offense some more firepower. The biggest thing for me is that unless something crazy happens, Shough will have the same coaching staff he had last season. That type of consistency is essential for developing quarterbacks and getting them adapted to the NFL. If you want to see what can go wrong when you're bringing in multiple coordinators with different offensive systems each season, look no further than Mac Jones. He had 3 different offensive coordinators with 3 different offensive systems in his first 3 seasons, and the outcome was rough. While Mac has shown some improvements this past season, New England did not do his development any favors. Retaining the coaching staff is an excellent move by the Saints. And the very last question I have is, can Shough take the next step in his sophomore season? Personally, I think he can. He's got an excellent tool set as a quarterback to excel in the NFL. He throws with anticipation, he makes the right reads, he can fake out defenders with pump fakes, and he's got wheels that allow him to be slippery in the pocket, extend the play, and gain some yards when he sees nothing downfield. If you look at quarterbacks who excel in the NFL, these are all the skills that they have as well. I'm pretty bullish on Shough, and I think he'll find success in the NFL. Although, I could be wrong. Maybe the Saints don't invest in him properly, and they don't give him the protection up front or the offensive weapons he needs. Maybe Shough can't handle operating a more complex offense. Maybe defensive coordinators are able to find something in the film and completely expose him. It's entirely possible he doesn't take that next step, and this season was a fluke. I don't think that will be the case, but after all, there's a reason I work in IT, and I'm not standing on the sidelines on game day.